Good afternoon, chart Spartans. I have got a dank video for you today. Cannabis. Is this the next great investing opportunity? So my interest was first piqued in cannabis in 2018, probably along with the rest of the herd, when certain stocks were up 10x in that year. Somehow I thought that would be a good time to invest, and I invested in Tilray, and I've been underwater for the next 2-3 years. I think at one point I was down 80%. So that's enough to put any investor off. But some investors are starting to see the green light. And 7 of the top 100 stocks traded on Robinhood are pot stocks. So maybe now is the time that I should be paying closer attention to cannabis. Let's try and work it out. There are 2 changes that I'm seeing in the cannabis industry. Firstly, you've got legalization. And secondly, you've got consolidation. On the legalization front, we all know that Canada and Uruguay have legalized it. A third of the states in the US have also legalized it, most recently with New York and New Jersey, and a slew of other states have plans to do so over the coming years. In Europe, in that sort of Europe area, we've got Israel and Luxembourg, which have plans to legalize it this year. And certainly after the coronavirus lockdowns, with governments scrambling for tax revenues, I think plenty of governments around the world are going to see the successes in Canada and in the US as well, and pay closer attention to cannabis and maybe look at legalizing it as a source of gaining tax revenue. So the legalization front is certainly something that is a tailwind for cannabis. On the consolidation side of things, there's been a huge amount of mergers, acquisitions, and capital deployment in cannabis over the recent years. Recently, in 2021, we've had the merger of Tilray and Althea, which has created the largest cannabis company by revenue. So consolidation is a very important part in the life cycle of emerging industries. It happens after the introduction phase of emerging industries, and it occurs when the industry is growing and trying to approach the maturing phase. Obviously, we're nowhere near maturing in the cannabis industry, but when the industry is growing, and after the initial introduction, there's a massive oversupply of new companies into the market, and there's a massive oversupply of products. And that causes the prices of the products to drop, and that makes companies go unprofitable. And in that unprofitable phase, when the whole industry is growing, but the individual companies are unprofitable, that's when we get the consolidation. And that's when we get the opportunity to invest, because these companies that are consolidating are gaining market share and positioning themselves to capture the future growth of the industry. Now, if we look at a historical example, this was very evident in the automotive industry in the US in the 1900s. In the early 1900s, I think there was about 1,900 automotive companies all scrambling to seek the riches of the new industry. And then I think by 1960, there were 3 main companies that dominated the industry: Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. So that's after the consolidation phase, and the industry grows, and then eventually it reaches the maturity phase. So consolidation is something that's very good for an industry, and we've certainly been seeing that in cannabis. I think in 2018, there was a lot of cannabis companies, particularly in Canada, and there was so much supply that cannabis prices dropped, and those companies then became unprofitable. So 2 good things I'm seeing in the cannabis industry. Now let's have a look at the charts. I'll have a look at 3 ETFs, and after those ETFs I'll have a look at 3 stocks which are in the top 100 Robinhood stocks. So this one here, CNBS. I've got it on the log chart because this is a emerging industry. We have exponential growth, and therefore the log chart contains the price moves better. We can see a clear bear trend, like pretty much all the cannabis stocks. We had the big exciting phase in 2018 where they were going up massively, when I thought it was a good time to buy. And then we've had the subsequent bear market when everyone was like, oh, never again, I'm never invested in cannabis. And then we start to see the consolidation, and then pop, we break out of the bull market, out of the bear market very convincingly. We build a bit of a ledge, a bit of a pattern. This would have been a great time to invest here, when you see this rectangular level being built, and then pop, we break out again. So we're in a very clear bull market. Let's try and define this bull market here. We've got 3 touch points, which is very good for making a reliable trend. So we've got a reliable trend, price has spiked up, and we're now correcting back to the bull market trend line. We're actually approaching quite a good entry point. You know, if you wanted to load up here, this is not financial advice, do your own due diligence, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, this is starting to look like an attractive entry point for this bull market. And then you can expect price to continue to like that. So that's one ETF. Let's have a look at YOLO. If you're stuck with companies to invest in, just YOLO it. Now I've already got the lines drawn on here. So we're in the same bear market till about May 2020, until we break up very convincingly, we get a gap up, we build a new level, and then we're in the new bull market. We can see again we've got that same 3 touch points of the trend line, but unfortunately we have broken down from the trend, which is I don't know, it's not what we want to see. If we wanted to see a clearly defined trend, we wouldn't want this. However, given the fact that from the peak to where we are now, we have corrected 39%. And if we have a look on the Fibonacci retracement levels, if I can find the button, here it is. So if we have a look from here, we've retraced 61% of that move, and that's a typical retracement level to see. So potentially we are just overextended, the bull trend is intact, and we see a pop-up like this, consolidation, and then continuation of the bull market. This is all speculation, don't take my word for it. It's just some lines that I'm drawing on the chart, you know, maybe something that could potentially happen. And then we maintain the trend. Who knows? Not me. So let's have a look at the third ETF, THCX. THCX, so that's convenient. Here we have the same bear market, we have oversupply, we have cannabis product prices coming down, we have too many companies coming into the market. Then we get down here and companies are now going bankrupt, we get consolidation, we get new exciting things on the future, we get politicians making positive noises about legalization, we get Biden getting elected, although we wouldn't have known that back here. But we get all these green lights, and then pop, we're out of the bear market. We come back, we back test, we build a level for a bit, we close that gap up here, and we form a very nice base. We've got 3 touch points on here. This is a strong trend line. And as you see here, price is correcting, but it's nowhere near this trend line. So actually we're starting to see a lot of relative outperformance in the THCX versus those other ETFs. And then maybe one of the levels you want to be watching is, let's just watch this line here. If we see the ETF break above here at any point, that, you know, say it keeps on correcting and then it breaks out here, and then we get like a little pullback like that, you know, it kind of rechecks the breakout, that's your entry point. Bang. Maybe, actually, I might start watching this. This looks quite interesting, this ETF. And the explosive power of these moves. I mean, look at this. 287%. There is a lot of opportunity in the cannabis space. We're very early on. So yeah, that ETF looks exciting, actually. Now let's have a look at some individual stocks. My favourite one, and the one that's lost me loads of money, Tilray. So here's Tilray. Let's get rid of the drawings. Now, as a treat, I'll take you off the log chart, and we can see how cheap Tilray is compared to the historical prices. Look at that. So Tilray is like 95% below its all-time highs. Given what we know about Tilray, its recent merger with Althea, making it the largest cannabis company by revenue, so it's positioning itself in the industry as a pole player. It's in pole position in the industry. It's doing all the right things. So it's merging, it's acquiring, it's making the efficiency gains, it's laying off staff. So it's doing all the things to put it on the path to profitability, but it's 95% below its all-time highs. That looks cheap. I mean, I don't know much else, but just on that looks cheap. And the reason why I was interested in Tilray is the explosive power of Tilray. Just have a look at this. So this was from December 2020 to March 2021. So over about 4 months, up 743%. Wow. Right, we'll go on the log chart and we'll draw some lines. So this is the bear market. This is probably when I invested. I probably thought like everyone else, cannabis is going to be massive, and then all of a sudden, it wasn't. That's the bear market. That is pulling out all the excesses. That's people saying, oh, never again, I'm not investing in cannabis. What a waste of time. Give me my Apple or give me my Amazon. And then we see a low here. We see a first move up. We see a correction, and then a convincing breakout, back test to the breakout, and then on higher. What we're seeing here is another correction before the next leg up. Now, assuming this is a bull market, and I think all the evidence is suggesting this is a bull market, the fact that it's broken out of this downtrend, the fact that we've got all the legislation and the consolidation and the growth in the industry, and the rising prices, it's safe to say we're in a bull market. If we are in a bull market, let's try and work out where the next move is. So I'm going to use the pitchfork, which is not on here, but I'm going to use the pitchfork, which is my favorite tool for looking at the trajectory of a bull market. We mark it to the top of the first move, we mark it to the bottom of the correction, and then it gives us the trajectory of the bull move. Using Elliott wave, which is basically counting out the waves in a bull market, Elliott wave suggests there are 5 moves in an impulse wave, and this looks like an impulse wave to me. So let's count out the moves. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm expecting a 5th wave before we start a major correction. Where can we expect that 5th wave to go? Well, given that the third wave reached this rail here, it's not unreasonable to expect the second wave to also reach that rail, which could potentially look something like that. You're practically back to all-time highs. Now, bearing in mind I'm on a log chart, how much gain is that? We could be looking at 1,500% gains. If maybe if this thing gets carried away and we go back to all-time highs, we're looking at 2,000% gains. And that's why I was initially interested in Tilray, because this is a company in pole position in an emerging industry with explosive upside. Obviously, it's also got explosive downsides, and I know all too much about that. That was me. So that's Tilray. Let's have a look at some other ones. Canopy. So Canopy, same picture as the rest of them. Clear bear markets. You got all this oversupply. Cannabis is terrible. Never invest in cannabis. So then, pop, we're out of the bear market. We've back tested. We've built a lovely base, and then bang, we're off. And what we have here is 3 touch points on this new bull trend. We're actually kissing that trend now. So from a risk reward perspective, if you wanted to invest in something right now, Canopy actually looks quite good. We're right on that trend line. Obviously, don't take my word for it because I don't know anything. All I'm doing is drawing lines and guessing. But three touch points on this bull trend. I would not be surprised for pop something like that. So Canopy growth looks good. Final one I'll look at. This is another Robinhood stock, Curaleaf. And in Curaleaf, so I've already drawn this trend line on here. Thank you very much. Past me. So Curaleaf, we've got the same situation. We've got a very nicely defined bull market. It looks like we've got a bit of a actually, let's take this off the log chart. This might be better. So yeah, we've got this nicely defined bull market in Curaleaf. We've got a triangulation. This could actually be a little bit of a bull flag. So if I draw another line here, yeah, that looks a little bit like a bull flag with a potential breakout. And that pattern, I mean, you could be looking at any stock, any security, but it's the rhythm of the patterns, and it's the repeating nature of the patterns that you can pick out in different securities. Doesn't matter what they are, what industry. If you see a pattern repeat, you can make a move on it. And this pattern I saw very recently in gold, before gold broke out. Let me show you what I mean about the gold chart. Hopefully I don't have any drawings on there. I've already got it drawn on there. So look, we've got the exact same picture. We've got let's get you on the log. We've got a strong bull market, 1, 2, 3, 4 touch points. We've got this downward resistance, which is actually forming a bull flag, just like we saw in Curaleaf, and it triangulates over here, and then pop, it breaks out. So different security, same pattern. I don't actually care what the security is, what the asset is, what the market is. For me, it's all about the patterns, and I think the patterns in the cannabis stocks are looking good. So from a technical perspective, it's got the green light. From the legalization perspective, we're getting the green light. And from the point we are in the life cycle of the industry, we're getting the green light. We're in the consolidation phase. We're consolidating within the growth phase. You know, we're not in the introduction phase, which is highly risky and companies can go bankrupt. We're in the growth phase. This is where revenues are increasing, profit is being realized, companies are consolidating, they're becoming more efficient, and they're gaining market share. And eventually, once the growth phase passes, we will enter the mature phase. But right now, we're in the growth phase. And from my perspective, I think there's a lot of promise in this industry. I mean, I only have probably about 2% of